I've chosen her.
Mom, he's hiding something worse than her.
The ballroom was silent when my husband stood beside the woman he had been hiding from me for almost a year. Hundreds of people were watching. Our business partners, our friends, his family. And then he looked directly at me and said the words I never thought I would hear from the man I had been married to for 17 years. I've chosen her. I remember looking at the woman beside him. She was wearing a diamond necklace I had given my husband for our anniversary. But that wasn't what broke me. It was the look on my daughter's face. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shocked. She was staring at her father like she had just discovered that the man she called Dad was a complete stranger. Then she walked across the room, took my hand, and whispered, "Mom, don't fight for Dad." I looked at her. Why? She glanced toward her father. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. Because I know what he's been hiding from us. And what my daughter discovered that night wasn't just an affair. It was a secret that could destroy my husband's billion-dollar empire and change everything I thought I knew about our family. But there was one thing I didn't understand yet. How long had my daughter known the truth? I want to tell you about a different night first, because it's the one I kept returning to in the weeks that followed. 9 years into our marriage, Marcus and I stood on the roof of a half-finished tower at midnight, the one with his name on it now, though back then it only had mine on the blueprints. He'd handed me a hard hat covered in dust, and said he wanted me to see it before anyone else did. I remember him pointing at the skyline and telling me that everything he built so I'd never have to worry about anything again. I believed him. I'd built that tower with him, floor by floor, the same way I'd once had my own small architecture firm before I folded it into his company. I wasn't a woman who married a fortune. I helped design one. That memory didn't match the man standing under a chandelier 17 years later, choosing another woman in front of everyone we knew. It hadn't happened all at once. It never does. It started with a name that kept appearing on his calendar at hours that made no sense. Vivian Reyes. Then Marcus started turning his phone face down on the table, something he'd never done before. He began leaving dinners early, always with the same explanation, always delivered the same calm way. I found a receipt once, tucked into his coat pocket, from a restaurant I'd never heard of, for a table of 2. Then, at a fundraiser that spring, I watched a woman cross the room toward him with the kind of familiarity that told me everything before either of them said a word. Marcus's posture changed when she got close. His voice changed too. I asked him who she was. "Vivian. She's handling a private matter." "What kind of matter?" He didn't answer right away. He looked at me the way he looked at people across a negotiating table. Calm, patient, already 3 steps ahead. "I'll handle it. The way I always have." 17 years of marriage, and I finally understood that sentence for what it was. Not reassurance, a door closing. I told myself I was imagining things. I wasn't. While I was watching Marcus, I stopped watching Sophie, and that was my first real mistake. She'd always been a quiet kid, careful with her words the way I was at her age, but that spring something in her shifted. She stopped asking when the divorce might happen, which worried me more than if she'd asked constantly. One evening I found her standing in the doorway of Marcus's home office, just standing there, watching the room like it might tell her something if she waited long enough. "Are you okay?" Why wouldn't I be? She wasn't looking at me when she said it. She was looking past me, toward the hallway that led to Marcus's office. A week later I caught her actually inside it, standing in front of his desk, in front of the bottom drawer, the one he always kept locked. She wasn't touching it. She was just looking at it, the way you look at something you already know the answer to and haven't decided what to do with yet. "What are you doing in here?" "Checking something." "Checking what?" "Nothing yet." "Sophie, that drawer is locked." She glanced down at her hand, and that's when I saw it. A small brass key, held loosely between her fingers. "Where did you get that?" She hesitated long enough that I knew the answer mattered. "I took it off Dad's key ring, weeks ago." "Why?" She didn't answer that one at all. She just slipped the key into her pocket and walked past me, and I let her go, because some part of me wasn't ready yet for whatever she knew. It was around that same time that I noticed the photograph. It sat on a shelf in Marcus's office, half hidden behind a stack of industry awards, a group photo from some Calloway family reunion, years old, the kind you take once and forget about. Except one face in it had been scratched out. Not torn, scratched, deliberately, hard enough that the pen had cut through the paper underneath. I asked his mother about it once, carefully, over dinner. She set her fork down and told me that some names simply didn't get spoken in that house. Then she changed the subject, and I let her, because I had a bigger fire in front of me and no idea yet that the two were connected. So I did something I'd never done in 17 years of marriage. I searched his study myself. Behind a stack of tax documents, in an unlocked folder I almost didn't open, I found a letter. I expected something personal, something that would confirm what I already believed. Instead, it was formal, typed on letterhead that read, Reyes and Alden, attorneys at law, addressed to my husband. Signed, Vivian Reyes, Esquire. The letter referenced an outstanding claim against the Calloway Family Trust and asked for continued discretion regarding, quote, the terms discussed. I read it twice, standing there in the dark, and I felt something shift underneath everything I thought I understood. Vivian Reyes wasn't my husband's mistress. She was the woman threatening to take apart everything he'd built. I didn't confront him that night. I went to Sophie instead, because some part of me had already guessed that whatever she'd found in that drawer weeks earlier was the other half of what I was holding. I sat down across from her in her room, and I told her what I'd found. She went very still. Then, slowly, she told me the rest. I found bank records, Mom, wire transfers, sent every few months, to the same account. Whose account? She hesitated, the way she had over the key. A man named Daniel Calloway. I felt the room tilt slightly. Who is Daniel? Dad's brother. Marcus doesn't have a brother. Sophie. He does. Grandma made sure I never knew it. I only found the name because it was written on the transfer records, over and over. She reached into her backpack and pulled out her phone, showing me a photo she'd taken of that scratched-out photograph, zoomed in on the shape of the missing face, the angle of the shoulders, the position in the group. Then she held up a printed copy of one of the bank documents beside it. Look at the name next to the account, Mom. Then look at who's missing from the picture. I looked, and for the first time, the two mysteries collapsed into one. I confronted Marcus that same night, in his study, standing exactly where I'd found the letter. Who is Daniel? He didn't try to deflect. Something in his face told me he'd been waiting for this conversation for longer than I knew. My brother. Your brother. 17 years, Marcus, and you never once mentioned a brother. He sat down slowly, like the weight of the sentence needed somewhere to land. Our father died 20 years ago. I rewrote the terms of the family trust while Daniel was overseas, unreachable for months. I told our mother he'd chosen to walk away from the family. He didn't walk away. I made that decision for him. And Vivian? His attorney. He hired her 8 months ago, demanding a formal settlement. She made it clear that if I didn't cooperate, she'd take the trust's history public. So you let everyone believe you were having an affair. A scandal like that fades in a season, Claire. The truth about the trust wouldn't have. You let me believe it was an affair because I could survive that. Yes, I should have felt like I finally had the whole truth. I didn't. Something in the timeline sat wrong in my chest, and it took me a moment to place it. You said Daniel hired her 8 months ago. That's right. The earliest transfer Sophie found was dated almost 2 years ago. Marcus. That's not 8 months. He was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost the calm I'd known for 17 years. Daniel found out what I'd done to the trust almost 2 years ago. He came to me himself, quietly, and I paid him to stay quiet about it. I told myself that was the end of it. And it wasn't. 8 months ago, he stopped taking the money. He hired Vivian instead, because he didn't want to be paid to disappear anymore. He wanted it made right, in the open. Daniel didn't come back 8 months ago. That's when he stopped letting you pay him to disappear. He didn't answer that. He didn't need to. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the room where we used to keep old photographs, and I found one of the two of us on that unfinished rooftop, years earlier, dust on both our faces. Before any of this, I thought about the man in that picture, the one who used to tell me everything. Then I thought about Sophie's door down the hall, and I understood, clearly, for the first time, that I wasn't fighting to save a marriage anymore. I was deciding what kind of mother I wanted to be to the daughter who'd found the truth before I had. So I acted. I walked into a Callaway Group board meeting 3 days later, unannounced, and set the trust documents on the table in front of 8 directors who had no idea what they were about to read. Marcus stood at the head of the room, and I watched him realize, in real time, that he no longer controlled how this story would be told. "You've spent 20 years deciding which version of the truth everyone else gets to hear," I said. "I'm done letting you choose." The questions started before I even sat down. The board opened its own review. I met with Vivian myself, expecting hostility, and finding none. She told me she'd hated the role she'd been assigned, that her only client had ever been Daniel, that she'd spent 8 months trying to get a wealthy man to simply tell the truth to his own family. The settlement, once buried in silence, was finalized in the open. It was Sophie who finally closed the last gap. She told me that backstage at the gala, minutes before Marcus made his announcement, she'd slipped past a service hallway looking for me, and heard her father's voice through a half-open door. He and Vivian were finishing the settlement paperwork. She heard him say that he was about to make the affair official, so no one would ever think to ask about the trust again. That was the moment she decided. "I wasn't trying to save you from an affair, Mom," she told me. "I was trying to stop him from getting away with it again." For a long time, I believed the worst thing Marcus had done was choose another woman in front of a room full of people who knew my name. I understand now that it went deeper than that. Marcus had decided, on his own, that I was strong enough to survive believing a lie, but not strong enough to be trusted with the truth. 17 years, and he never once gave me the chance to prove him wrong. Sophie didn't take my hand that night to warn me about another woman. She took it to make sure her father didn't get to bury the truth a second time, the way he'd buried his own brother 20 years before she was even born. If your child discovered the truth your husband was hiding, would you want to know, even if the truth destroyed your marriage? Subscribe to Whispered Truths for more stories where the truth is never what it seems.